All right, Matthew, we just got done finishing the beginners module for the website. I have been, well, the past couple months, you and I have been building this website out. I've been recording 60 plus tunes, intermediate, advanced, just start working on the beginner stuff. But along the way of recording all these videos and watching you teach them, I've had some questions, and so we decided that instead of me just asking, which I've asked you a couple along the way, but we're going to turn on the cameras and I'm going to ask you, and just because I think other people might have these same questions. So one of the first things is we started with the advanced intermediate tunes. That's kind of where we started from.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were doing that, like I said, I don't know anything. The way you taught was shocking to me. It wasn't like a play this note, this note. The way you taught was just so different than how I imagined. And I know, obviously, because I'm bottom level beginner, but an intermediate, they can just listen to like an intermediate tune. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of like step by step teaching going on. So an intermediate player that comes to you, they can just essentially just look and watch what you're doing and play, or
Yes, very, very easily. There are, if they've been trained properly, if they understand their instrument and if they've been already playing with their ears and learning things by ear, that's a skill that becomes more strong. And yes, the way that the intermediate and especially the advanced stuff is set up is it is just demonstration. It is very much the way I learned how to play the fiddle from the masters that I learned from. There wasn't on the fiddle music. There was never any sheet music. Sometimes in the very beginning there was something we call tablature, which is a kind of a shorthand form of conveying some music ideas, but it's not anything I'd use a lot of anymore just because there's no universal format for it. And I really think that it does create when you learn a fiddle tune from either sheet music or tablature, you're not learning it the way your masters learned it. I mean, they learned it by ear from their dads or somebody else in their family or a friend that they were learning from. Now, some of these guys, including one of my main mentors, Orville Burns, they were also classical players who played in their orchestras growing up, so they knew how to read music. But they didn't read music to learn this type of music, and learning it organically, feeling the frequencies and feeling the notes as opposed to seeing them with your eyes, either the notes on the page or the numbers on the lines with the tablature. That's information taken in by our eyes and comes out as we're looking at it. I think that those are all, especially standard notation, is an invaluable tool for musicians to understand how music works, and also just having a basic understanding of it so they can understand theory and apply it a little bit easier. But to really learn these tunes, I'm going to give you an example. I remember when I was very young and I was using some tablature. Some of the teachers that I was working with had been teaching me that way. And I can think of a song called Hot Foot, which will be really familiar to a lot of our fiddle people. And I learned that from tablature. And still to this day, when I go to play Hot Foot, when somebody says play Hot Foot, all of a sudden the visual image that comes up in my mind is that sheet of tab. And it's just a sequence of numbers on a line. I don't remember it exactly, but that's what my mind recalls, right? Now I'm going to juxtapose that with a tune called Apple Blossom that a mentor was, they were going to teach me Apple Blossom, but they said, we'll do that next week, or whenever I was going to be coming to see them next. And I had a week to think of what Apple Blossom was without any sort of interference of a sheet of paper or anything like that. And I got to think, I wonder what that song's about. oh wow, it's probably an apple tree, and the flowers on it, before it starts to fruit. And so that became, and still is to this day, when someone says play Apple Blossom,
That's what you did.
that's what I play, the tree, basically.
Yeah.
That's the image that brings me kind of home to all the information that I need to play that tune, right? And we're getting
No, I like this. This is actually
kind of adjacent to the topic, maybe.
No, but it is good to hear kind of where, there is a visualization aspect to it.
Oh, for me, it's huge in music, and it always has been, and I didn't even know it growing up.
Yeah. Okay, so another thing, getting now, that was kind of the intermediate, kind of my thoughts that I had while recording and editing the video for the intermediate and advanced tunes. Then we did the beginner module, and as we were going through the beginner module, you made it seem very, like, as I was editing and doing it, like, even me, I was like, I feel like I could probably do this. You made it feel very accessible, and I think at one time you even said that, you think that anybody who has the desire to practice can be a musician.
Yes, I mean there's certain cases where, I mean, I've seen some pretty amazing things. I've seen some situations where you would think someone who has like no pitch recognizance whatsoever, like, just you ask them to sing a note and they're just all over the place, and wow, this guy can't hear, or this guy just really has no reference. And I've, even with some of those people, been able to turn on a light switch in them somehow, some way. I don't know how I do it, but it's got coming at it from so many different angles, and then finally getting them to see what they're trying to do, and then all of a sudden they are able to sing. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Now, I will say this: if you get somebody that can't tap their foot,
yeah,
if you get somebody, that's the undoable for me so far. If you can't get a guy that could just keep natural rhythm, that seems to be what
that's the line.
The drummer, right? You gotta be able to do that. You got to be able to track with that. And I've worked with people who have it. It is, their perception of that is just so skewed. I don't want to say it's wrong or they can't do it. It's just they just don't see it. It's and you'd think that would be the one that would be the easiest. But that's the one thing.
Okay.
But other than that, I really do feel like most people could be taught.
And you even said, like, you told me that if you took, like, 3 kids or 3 students, and I don't know how long you said you'd have it for, but it was like one's playing a violin, one's playing a bass, one's playing guitar. Mm-hmm. That by the time you're done with them, they'd be able to switch instruments and play.
That's because I trained all 3 of them.
Right.
And I trained them on the basics of music going into learning their instrument, so they already have a fundamental knowledge of that, and they're able to transfer that knowledge onto another instrument pretty easily, especially another string instrument, right?
And so you're saying you had them from the very beginning. They didn't have any other teaching prior to that?
I've had maybe in some situations I've been able to do that with people I haven't taught either, in workshop situations. But I mean, it's the idea is if you've worked with somebody who's had that basic training and really understanding the basics of music, then it should be easy for them to understand a guitar and a bass.
Okay, yeah, because I guess for me, you said that, and I was like, that sounds that sounds incredible to me that 3 students could do that. But based off what I was saying with this beginners module we just made, it feels very like I don't want to say not hard, but it just feels, the best word I can think of is accessible. Like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I feel like I could do this, and to the point where, like, I was talking to you about it, and you're like, look, I have a fiddle that I could let you play and see how you do.
Yeah, so we thought this was a great way to.
I'm going to, put myself out there. I'm going to record it, and I'm going to do kind of like take the lesson one by one and go through it and see how it goes. And I am busy, so it's going to be, I know, one thing that you had addressed in the beginner module is like how much time does it take, and you say it's whatever you're willing to put in, and I'm going to see where I can find little slivers of time to put it in.
It's all really about consistency. And if you don't have a goal in mind, and then don't even have that goal, it's about, hey, I need to sit down with intent, right? Even if you only have 10 minutes a day in these beginning stages, you can do a simple thing for 10 minutes and really get some good repetition in there and build a strong foundation for going forward. So I don't want you to think that you need a lot of time. It's just that the guys that do, and they're really trying to get good quick. I mean, I always say, I don't practice a ton these days, just partly because of just arthritis and old guy syndrome. No, it is a little bit. A lot of the practicing I'll do will be on mandolin. Just because it's not as much of
that's taxing
on the body.
Yeah.
And I did at one time practice a lot, and I'm gonna give probably the years 14, 15, and 16. I can't even tell you how much I was playing, other than it was all the time.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely driven. My parents never once told me to practice. Never, ever once in my life never told me to practice. It was all self-driven, and I was very passionate about it. But I know I was spending upwards of 8 hours a day in those days. Mm. And that's a teenager.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's
crazy.
And I was doing other things too.
And is that just violin, or?
That was really getting. Well, no, I was doing that, but the serious study was on the violin and the fiddle at that point. Mm-hmm. That's where my head was, learning an entire Terry Morris album, and I just had goals and tasks for myself to do.
Yeah. So. You started to talk about it a little bit, but I want to dig into it a little more because, and that's just the whole playing by ear, mm-hmm. right? So
yeah, important.
Yeah. So I guess, simple, basic question is what's the reason why playing by ear is so important to you?
Well, number one, it's the most organic way to learn music. It's the way people started learning music. It's the way I learned from my dad early on. I wasn't taught to read music from the very get-go, but he did have me on the music very, very young, 3 years old. Taught me a little bit about chords, but it was very much listening to him, watching what he was doing, listening to him sing at that point. There's no violin going on at this stage. But when it comes to any sort of music learning, I'll give the example of a keyboard student that I might be working with that hears a song on the radio that they really like, and they'd like to be able to play it. My skills as learning to play by ear as a musician early on and all through my life allow me to very quickly sit down with a piece of music, but I've never heard it before, but very quickly distill what is there and find the important parts and be able to show that to someone who wants to learn a basic chord pattern to go with their favorite pop song, right? And I believe I can teach other people to do that. I'm not the only guy that can do that. There's millions of musicians that can do that. Yeah. But that's a general sense of what playing by ear gets me. I also can just be walking by any jam session or music performance and pretty quickly tell you what key they're in. A lot of music, that all comes from learning by ear and being able to absorb those frequencies and being able to interpret them. You having really listened over the years, if that makes any sense, right?
Right. Yeah, it's the practice of just knowing what that sounds like.
And then also, so let's kind of circle back to the violin here. the violin is a difficult instrument physically to manipulate.
Yeah.
And it's hard, just that part of it, right? And I found out that the best way to build a violin player is to teach them how to hold it correctly, and then to just start with a few simple notes and show them those notes. Don't write them down on a piece of paper. Show them those notes. And I start teaching them the note names right out of the gate too. I want them knowing that, because that's going to help with our basic theory study as we start to understand things on a basic level. So it's not, I don't use the numbers and the, hey, that's the 3. I do sometimes for reference, but I'm always trying to get the beginners to know what the note names are. But more importantly, it's just those few notes. We start with hot cross buns. That's 3 notes. And the way my program is built is I want you to stay with that until you really understand that, where you really feel it, where you really see it, where you're, and you don't need music to help you do that, to learn those 3 notes, right? Then we move on. We add a note.
When you say music, you mean you don't need...
I don't need something like that to play Hot Cross Buns.
Got it,
I don't need the music to play anything. And then to learn Mary Had a Little Lamb, I just need to add one more note to what I've learned on Hot Cross Buns and play it in a different sequence. That's very easy. I can do that. I can sing Mary Had a Little Lamb very easily, so I can go ahead and play it on the violin. Then you got Twinkle, adds another couple notes, and then we finally talk about the whole scale. The whole major scale is only 7 notes, and most of the melodies we're playing are just being built from those things. So if you learn how to, just learn the basics of a major scale and hear the intervals in those. Music is built on whole steps and half steps. That's it. And everything is kind of out from there. If you start simply like that and just use the basic scale and really study how you're using it, saying, man, that's weird. Hot Cross Buns starts on the 3rd note of the scale. Oh, so does Mary Had a Little Lamb. Oh, wow, a lot of songs start on the 3rd note of the scale. Some of them start on the 5th. You're going to start to see things that you wouldn't necessarily see if you were just reading the music and interpreting and playing here. You wouldn't be thinking about it that much and internalizing it that much, does it?
Yeah.
Now that all this is, I do not want anyone to get the idea that I am against standard notation, for sure. I know how to read music. I still read music for some jobs, have to for some session jobs. I've got a theater deal that all they had was the music to send me the other day. And so I've got, it's a skill that I have. I'm not a good sight reader. But I think that it's for anybody that's serious about music really does need to, have that skill. There's a lot of organic musicians that can't, and there's even some thinking out there that you can, if you never have that, it might be better for your organic self.
Right.
So I really think a combination of these things in the future. It's not that I teach plenty of people to read. I just don't do it in the beginning. I make sure they understand their instrument a little bit. And then that way, when we go to the page and we say, hey, that C sharp we've been talking about? There it is right there. That's where it lives on the staff.
Yeah.
And I found that has a lot more meaning then. Okay. And then as they're playing the music, they're going to be thinking about it a little bit more than if they would have started right out of the gate.
Right.
Right?
Well, and it kind of reminds me of, and let me know if this is a good analogy of, like, even when we learn to we learn to speak before we learn to read and write.
That is exactly the thing. That's what we learn by imitation. That's why with our fiddle site, you were saying, we were talking before about how we're not going through, especially on the advanced, and doing much of anything. They can slow it down and pick it up. Kids are so good with their ears that they are able to do that. They don't need much explanation. On our intermediate videos, we do go through and slow down and break down some bowings and stuff like that, and do it in a repeated manner, so they're getting some
Yeah.
structure that
Yes.
way, right? But any one of those tunes, like I say, I mean, I know I'm a bad example because I've been doing this for 40 some years, but I can learn stuff by ear very quickly,
Right.
and there's people that can do it a lot quicker than I can, and wouldn't everybody want to have that skill?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to be able to have that skill to go, oh, I don't need to order the music for this. I don't need to do that. I can just listen to it and play it.
Yeah. Is there like, I don't know how to say that. Is it like a common mistake that you see with students, maybe just overall, but also specifically to like trying to learn by ear?
A common,
Like or like what are some like maybe like pitfalls or
just getting too frustrated with themselves. The way I learn something by ear, if I have to learn it quickly, is I'm going to start by listening to it a lot. As a matter of fact, if I've got a studio job and it's either a bunch of original music or whatever it is I'll put it in the car and just listen to it all the time, and that helps me do a lot of my study right there. But I still say, everybody listen, 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 right?
no matter what level?
Right. And then as you start to play, you really can, after a little bit of training, you can just kind of, after you've listened, you've got a lot of the learning done, and grab your violin and start to play along, and what you'll find is that you have a lot of anchor points to the melody already established before you even pick the thing up. I mean, even you're going to experience that at a beginner level. You're going to experience some sort of a phenomenon like that. But then don't get too frustrated as you start to play along. Don't hang up on every missed note. Play it through, and okay, I got a lot of it, but I still need to keep going and playing. And as if you just get the repetitions in, you're going to get more and more of the notes without much effort. And then you can kind of stop after a while and say, okay, there's a couple of soft spots in here. I need to go to the recording and really figure out what's going on there. Does that
Yeah.
am I making any sense
Yeah.
here? That don't get too frustrated with the ear training process, and especially if you're new to it. I've seen people that have never done anything by ear, and when they jump in, they get pretty frustrated because it doesn't happen as quickly as they think it should. But it's a new skill kind of, and it's something that needs time to develop the wiring for it. But once that's there, it gets
there. It's
easier.
hardwired in
Oh,
there,
it gets much easier. I've seen people that came to me and said, I can't learn by ear at all. I can't. If you don't give me a piece of music or some captures, we're out. And I said, well, I'm not your teacher then. I've seen those
You've seen
people
that transition.
not only learn that song, but jump in and start learning and getting better at learning by ear really quickly, and in the end being really good at it, but being completely averse to it from the get-go. And so I always have to remember about my lens being different from others' lenses that they're perceiving music through. And not that it's either way is bad or good. It's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm trying to teach people is how I see through this
Right.
VR.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Totally.
I'm trying to show people the way I absorb that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, you have worked with some super talented musicians. I mean, some of the names you've worked with, they're big names out there. And when they've, like, when you teach them, is that how are you trying to get them to look through like that lens?
All of the people that I've worked with, first of all, that's the greatest feeling in the world, to have anybody that you work with go on to great heights, and there's just it gives me goosebumps just to sit here I am truly humbled to have been able to work with some of the people that I have, and knowing what they've gone on to do, and just watching them, they all amaze me.
Mm-hmm.
But they all tell me that it's these overall things, it's that overall lens from which I see music. They all talk about my rhythmic groove and the integrity of that, regardless of the style that I play, and a lot of Alex Hargraves. He talks about, you know, he studied a little bit with me when he was young, and he talks about the perspective of that is what really gave him a leg up of that point. The rhythmic aspect of it. Tristan Claridge, Luke Price, those guys all talk about that same. Not just that, but it's more of an overall approach to musicianship. It's not just teaching them a fiddle tune, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Which and with everything you just explained before, yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I am going to. I'm gonna try this thing, and I do want to. I do want to say that when you gave me the fiddle the other day, you said, "Okay, can you pluck this string?" And you had me pluck, 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 all four strings, and then you said, "Okay, now do this." I said, "Nope, that's it. We're stopping right there." I want to take the course, the video course itself, and so it'll be an authentic. I'm not getting any leg up by you teaching me personally. I guess the only leg up I have is hours of editing your video, your teaching videos, and that would be it. But we'll see how that goes. But I just wanted to. I've been wanting to sit down and actually have this conversation with you for a while since I've been, like I said, we've been working together for a long time.
4 years now.
Yeah, but it doing it like this with the teaching stuff it made me have questions I didn't have before. So I was glad that you were open to sit down and kind of talk about this, because I do think this is other questions beginners especially will have. And so
well, and it's important for us to talk about the methodology. It's not the this is the way I learned, and this is the way a lot of people still learn, but it's not the way everyone learns.
So this, we did this because we just released the beginners module. Beginners module is up on the website, MatthewHartzMusic.com. It's free. It's literally just to get you started. And I'm gonna do it too. I'm gonna join it and see. I'm gonna see how effective this thing is. Because this is new for you. You've never. I guess you've done some videos, teaching videos. In the past.
Yes, no, I have done that, but I've never done a beginning
module
course like this. But this is not. It's not like I haven't done it before, because this is exactly the way that I've been starting violinists for the past 10 to 15 years. When I have taught beginners, this is
how you do it.
This is how I do it, and I'm whether they've been sitting toe to toe with me or recording it on an audio recorder or videoing it. This is what the things that we're covering in this video course. That's the way I would teach you if you were coming and sitting down weekly in front of me. This is exactly the way we would do it.